good on time. Come on.
Okay. Remember that, everybody. Like I said, we're good on time.
Oh, no, shoot.
She jinxed
Don't
it.
quote me on that, please. Yes,
She jinxed
definitely.
it. Okay.
Yeah, you're going to have to edit this part out just to have time.
So I think if you've used, this is how we get derailed. Okay. So if you've used,
blame it on me.
Hello and welcome again to the Power Platform Boost podcast, your timely source of Power Platform news and updates with your hosts, Erika Akrabek and Nick Dolman, myself. Hey, Erika, how are you doing?
Hi, Nick. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm unemployed. Kind of.
I thought you were going to talk about that later, but you want to tell the people what's going on?
Yeah, so maybe if you haven't seen this on my LinkedIn, you might have noticed last week that my job description changed slightly. So I've left Microsoft. Just in case you're wondering, this is my decision. It took a while to think about things and look at where I want to be with my career. And I think, like, you know me, I like to deliver training and doing a lot of stuff in the community and working kind of hands-on with solutions and things like that. So it was something, the last 2 years at Microsoft have been great. As people know, I've been working in docs and I found that very interesting. We did a lot of great work. We converted over all the Power Apps, portals, documentation to Power Pages. I was part of a product launch involved in that, working with the PMs, everything. So I learned a ton, made a lot of great connections. But at the end of the day, it's like, I need to be back out there. And there was a few little trigger points along the way over the last few months. But I think what a lot of what really solidified me was like in Dublin at the European Power Platform Conference, where I delivered some training on the one of the pre-day trainings. Like this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be doing. And then, a few other little projects on the side, building stuff. And I'm like, okay, I need to get my head back into solving problems and things like that. So as of last Thursday, I am now freelancing. And to be quite honest, just so for other recruiters out there that are kind of ready to pounce on their LinkedIn, I am busy as anything already. So anyways, so yeah, that's what's new with me. But of course, nothing changes here. We're going to keep doing this podcast and keep doing the videos, keep doing the blog posts. That side doesn't really change except where my income comes. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And that's good. And we've missed you so much. And yes, to all the MVPs out there, we have submitted the form to nominate Nick back into the MVP program. You don't have to do it, but you can. I haven't really checked, but there's a thing inside the portal, MVP portal, right? But people can go in and endorse or, So then you can do that. And then he's back in the game, people.
Yeah. And filling out that form, because I got the email. Now I have to fill that out form and make sure. Yeah. So I remember.
But do you have any contributions?
I have a couple. I hope there is, what is feedback to the team? I'm like, oh, okay, I did that. But yeah, anyways, so we'll figure it out.
Yeah. And you have a lot of contributions. That is not what it's going to come down to. I think it's an easy peasy thing to just get you through the system. So looking forward to seeing you with your MVP badge still on. And for me, this is really fun because you're the one that nominated me because you're my mentor. And so when I filled out the form for you, I think that's, we come full circle, don't we?
Come full circle. But let's not get ahead of ourselves on anything. It is an award. It has to be decided. So I would be humbled and honored, but no expectations either.
And Chris Huntingford, you do not have to text us or email us. We know. It's all good. Right. So that is one type of news. But we're not here to talk about our personal news, are we?
No.
We're here to talk about the Power Platform news. We're going to attempt to stay within the 30-minute mark this time also, because we know that that's what you guys want. So let's get on with it. I listened to a great podcast episode this week or this month that really caught my attention. The XRM Toolcast, they had Daryl and Scott had a talk with EY Common, which is a good friend of ours, and they talked about the Power Platform environments and routing, just in time routing, and how you can now set up automatic creation of developer environments based on security groups. That is something we've touched on before, and EY confirmed that that's coming. And also routing, working for managed environments, and not, but the new default, and then you can set a new default environment, that type of thing. So we're not going to spoil the whole thing. It's a great episode. Good work, guys. So just, the episode 102 of the Extreme Toolcast.
Yeah, I listened to that on the road last weekend, and I learned a ton about the default environment and everything. It was a great conversation, and good work, guys.
Yeah, both Scott and Daryl said the same thing. So when they learn something new about the Power Platform, that means that, this is something we'll all learn from, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to go through the list just like that. You want to go random?
No, go through the go through the list, because we have to stay on time, right? So the next one is yours.
True.
Yeah.
All right. So I big on podcasts this week. The low code approach. I've talked about this podcast before. They have 2 great episodes where they're busting Power Platform myths. So that's with Ken, Wendy, and Sean, where they talk about common things that we all hear when we're talking to customers or we're talking internally with our own colleagues, pro code colleagues, the myths and the things that people talk about, with low code and citizen development and Power Platform and everything. So if you have those conversations often, it's a good tip to go in and listen to those episodes, because they will give you some insights as to what you can answer and what the narrative around those types of questions are. For instance, if it's enterprise ready, Power Platform, is it a low-code tool? Is it enterprise ready? Citizen development will introduce a risk in my organization. Why doesn't Microsoft tell us what's best practice, and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of questions, a lot of great answers. So good work.
Cool. I'm looking forward to checking that out. So the other thing that came up is a lot of the Power Apps August 2023 feature update. So a lot like what Power BI does, where there's monthly updates. It looks like Power Apps is going this route as well. And there's a whole big list of things here. And one thing was the general availability of the access checker to view all users who have access to a record. So if you're collaborating or sharing records, just to find out who has access to that. Just from your own perspective, is very helpful when running a model-driven app. I know this is also great for sometimes troubleshooting. If someone says, hey, I don't have access to this, and you can use that tool to do that. There's another tool. It's interesting. I know it's not on this blog post per se, but if you've used the Level Up, that Chrome extension, that has an impersonation thing in there as well that I like to use for troubleshooting security issues. But again, just goes to show, like enterprise ready. Yeah, they keep adding things to these tools that just make them stronger and stronger over time. And it's not all about Copilot either. There's other things that are being rolled out across the board here.
Definitely, yeah.
So speaking of learning,
yeah. You think about the CRM Keeper video series? Yes. My good friend Thomas Sanser, he has taken it upon himself to create a crash course for dummies that want to learn how to do plugins. Now, I know you're not listening to this, Thomas, because you don't listen to podcasts, but still, I think this is actually targeted towards me. We've had so many conversations over the years where I've asked Thomas, is it worth it for me to learn how to do plugins? Because I feel that that's the next step for me in terms of Dynamics. If I want to be a Dynamics developer, I think I need how to do plugins. I think I need to know how to do plugins. And so I actually created a YouTube series. He's 3 videos in, I think. There's an intro. There's one with how you install the different tools you need. You need Visual Studio. You need the XM Toolbox. And you need to install .NET or something on your computer. And then there's step 2, how to create a new project in Visual Studio. So yeah, a couple of videos still to go, I think, Thomas. But great job and great resource. So thank you so much for doing that.
What I like about this video series is the fact that he himself is in the process of learning how to do plugins. So it's almost like he's probably where a lot of people are at, but maybe now he's like a few pages ahead in the documentation or the manual. So it's interesting to see him learning, probably very much like how a lot of other people are going to be learning in that journey, as opposed to someone who's been doing plugins for 20 years saying, "Oh, you just do this, click here, blah, 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 blah," right? His approach is very slow and methodical from an approach of someone just learning. So definitely check that out if you're interested in learning plugins, and even if you've never touched Visual Studio before. So far, I'm really enjoying that series.
Yeah. And actually, to be fully transparent, I do this all the time as well. I'm going to have 2 sessions at Vegas. One is for ALM and how to move Power Pages sites with the new Power Platform pipelines. And I just put that deck together last week, and I did a blog post simultaneously as I'm learning the details, and I put everything in the blog post. And so that's how I learn. When I learn, I write a blog post about it, and then I do a session about the same thing. So actually, I submitted the topic as a session before I even knew how to do it, just to force myself to do it. And now I'm going to be on stage of Vegas teaching others to do the same thing. So I think a lot of us in the community, that this is actually what we do. It's we're statists. This is pretty crazy. But yeah, that's
It's
yeah.
I've said the best way to learn something is to teach it, and that's how I learn a lot of things.
Yes, because then you have to know it, right?
Yeah. And so going into other stuff, leveraging PowerFX 1.0. So PowerFX now is kind of moved from that open source into a GA type situation now.
Oh wait! This is what I was gonna play. Like play the stupid woman thingy. You forgot. I was supposed to
What?
say, Nick, I saw this thing about PowerFX and how it's 1.0 being general available, and it's now open source. And I think I may be using PowerFX, but I'm really not sure if I am and where I am. Can you tell me more about it?
Oh, do I have to edit this now?
No. Don't worry. We're 10 minutes in. We're good on time. Come on.
Okay. Remember that, everybody. Like I said, we're good on time.
Oh no! Shoot.
She jinxed
Don't
it.
quote me on that, please. Yes,
She jinxed
definitely.
it. Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
So,
edit this part out just to have time.
so I think if you've used, this is how we get derailed. Okay. So
Oh
if
yeah.
you've
Oh, blame it
used,
on me.
if you've, so anyways, if you've used PowerFX, you're asking, have you used it? Do you use it? If you've built Canvas apps since I think the beginning almost, there was that, they always called it then that Excel type language. It was even kind of referred to as that, well, the Canvas app language. And the idea of PowerFX is it's considered a low code language. It was very much based on, derived from how to do Excel formulas. So if anybody's built an Excel worksheet, has, I'm sure, used those Excel formulas before. So PowerFX kind of follows the same syntax, the same language. But the idea there, it's not so much for just Excel. It was meant to incorporate into Canvas apps. And now they're taking it and bringing it into like Dataverse, where you have, Dataverse PowerFX formulas on creating columns. So you can do a lot of cool things there, and then even moving PowerFX more into model-driven apps. And I'm sure that PowerFX will find its way into other products. I'm still under NDA. So that being said, so I know, I think a lot of people probably get kind of confused on what PowerFX is and how it works. And I found that helped me make the leap is, yes, it is a general purpose language. Basically describes business logic, but there's 2 ways to think of it. There's what they call the declarative, meaning here's a piece of code. I'm going to press a button, run this code. And that's how software development pretty much has been for years and still is. But the thing is with PowerFX, it also has that, what they call that imperative portion to it, where it's like, yeah, kind of do it now. Meaning if I create a PowerFX formula, let's say to do something very simple, like to have a full name field in Dataverse, where it's going to take the first name and the last name, the way that imperative functionality works is if that the power effects formula will kind of kick in automatically as soon as that value changes. Let's say the first name changes or the last name changes, or you fill that in, then boom, the full name field, the full name value is automatically calculated because of that imperative status. So that's sometimes where you kind of get tripped up on power effects. I find anyway in Canvas apps, like, okay, I want this to happen, but I don't want it to happen until I press a button. But why is it happening already? Or why is it not happening because I changed this value? So I know I'm going to rambling about power effects kind of thing, but basically, once you sort of get your head wrapped around it, then yeah, it is very powerful. And the fact that it's, 1.0 and open source means that, the community will be able to continue to contribute to that. And in this particular blog post that we'll have in the show notes, it basically it gives you a little bit more of the road ahead and where it's going and what this all means. So definitely check out that post on Power Effects. And yeah, it's so definitely Power Effects are one of those things like plugins. Yes, that's important. That'd be cool to learn. It could definitely be helpful. I think as a low code developer, Power Effects is kind of imperative that we all get our heads wrapped around it and start using it as much as possible, because that will be the language of the Power Platform in my mind.
Right. Okay. So if I use calculated columns in Dataverse or a model-driven app, then that's Power Effects now.
So
If I
no,
write,
there's two different. There are calculated columns, which was part of Dataverse for a while now. There's a new thing called Power Effects formulas. So when you create your
oh yeah,
field in Dataverse,
right.
normally you would say, I want this to be a text field. And then you would even say, go further. Oh, this one, I want this to be a calculated column. Instead, now you don't even pick the data type. You just pick, this is a Power Effects formula. And it by default becomes the data type of whatever the result of that Power Effects formula is. So it's pretty
Nice.
awesome. And then for doing stuff in Dataverse, it definitely will sort of replace that calculated columns. Although calculated columns will still work and they'll still be there, but I think more and more, instead of using calculated columns, I'm going to probably be focusing a lot more on Power Effects to build those out.
Sounds like a good idea. Right. That's great. Thank you for explaining that to me. Or is it called mansplaining? No.
No, mansplaining, but like, oh, here, dear, let me explain that to you, even though you
Oh, right.
probably know just as much as I do or more so. And you're kind of like, it's almost just like we had the conversation earlier about the whole ALM thing for our Nordic Summit thing. Like, you were like, no, I'll do it. I know what I'm doing. Like, okay, I can set this up for you. And you were like, no, I got it. Like, okay. So
Yeah, that was mansplaining. All
that
right.
was
Okay,
meant.
good. Okay. Right. So next item on the list is something I wanted to mention, just because I love the fact that Dynamics 365 and Dynamics Finance and Operations are coming into the Power Platform, becoming more of a same in the same platform. I love that. I saw something on LinkedIn by a man called Jag Jubal. Sorry if that's not how you pronounce that. Where he says that the unification of Dynamics Finance and Operations with the Power Platform has begun. Something is in preview, and that is you can see the Finance and Operations app within the Admin Center in the Power Platform now, alongside Sales and Marketing and Finance and Operations will be in the same view. So that is great. It's a step in the right direction. It means that the admin experience will be more unified. And I think we'll see a lot of news in this space going forward. So if this is what floats your boat, then check that out. We'll have links in the show notes.
Yeah. So like the finance and operations, like of course we're looking at historically that derived originally from a product called Exapta. So of course this is why it's like people, well, why wasn't this built on Dataverse from day one? Well, because when it was
Yeah,
originally built, there was no such thing as Dataverse. So it's
yeah,
interesting to see all these apps and things kind of converge. Also, Business Central as well is becoming more and more, you know, kind of all linked in and tied for this. For those of you from the mid 2000s that remember Project Green and that initiative, that's a whole story there. Project Green is finally becoming real in a sense in terms of a single platform with all of these different things, and you kind of use what you want. So
yeah.
interesting times. And yeah, I'm not an F&O person, but I know great people that are, and they're doing a lot of amazing things with just Power Platform in general and making finance and operations just more powerful as well.
Mm. And we've had extensions from Power Pages to finance and operations forever, and the partner portal having that integration with finance and operations and the projects or something. No?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So it has been connected for a while, but to see that in the same admin space as everything else is really a nice step for
Hmm.
admins at least. So another new thing that you have on the list, the DocuSign, that is Power Pages land.
Yeah, that was sort
Was
of
that
one
this
of
last thing you did as a Microsoft employee? Was the DocuSign thing?
pretty much in terms of a big topic. Yeah, there was a that was a like I put that documentation together. It was interesting because it was a little bit of a bumpy start because there was a couple other issues that kind of got introduced, and the team was amazing. They resolved those very quickly. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's so if you've ever kind of used DocuSign for contract sign offs or whatever else, then now you can incorporate that into Power Pages in a multi-step form. So you're doing an application, and then finally the last step is to sign off on a document or something. So even if you're doing, whether it's, something medical or like a passport application, or if you're, I know some childcare centers that are using Power Pages, and then, of course, the sign off for the parents to sign off on certain things. So yeah, I think this is going to be really cool. With that integration. So check out the documentation. I did do a video on this as well, and there's a blog post. So yeah, it's shameless self promotion, but I did the video I did the documentation, did all that, and like, this is really cool. I'm going to do a video on this. So yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
And
And that the fun fact is, I love these things. So this pops up one day, and the next day, a colleague asked me to have a quick chat about something. And in Norway, we have this data because of the data policy and GDPR and everything. When you're handling someone else's data, you need to have an agreement. And he's responsible for that at Terra. And he's asking me, do you know anywhere, low code wise, that we could create something where we have a form that our customers can fill out, and then by the end they get that, DocuSign or something to sign off? And I'm like, dude, you have no idea of the timing of this request. Let me just check that out for you.
perfect.
So yeah, it's great. I think this is something that people have been waiting for a long time. And with this, also the flow trigger a flow from Power Pages has to work for this to work, right? So
Hmm.
that is also in preview. These two are intertwined and very linked. So when the DocuSign thing comes in GA, we will also have the flow integration things GA, right? Yeah.
My understanding, yeah, the flow is already going to be GA soonish. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And speaking of like listening to podcasts, whatever, Steve Mordew, good friend of the show, good friend of ours, he writes a blog and then he reads his blog. And as he says, for those of you who don't have the time or the energy to read his blog, he'll read it for you as kind of a service, like Steve as a service. That's
Fantastic. Maybe we should do it for the podcast just the other way around. Just publish the transcript as a blog post.
oh, you know what? My wife asked for that because she doesn't listen to the podcast, and she says, "Can you just give me a transcript?" So I was like, "Okay."
Ah! And then please go pilot, remove all the ramblings and all the stuff in between.
Oh yeah.
That'll be interesting to read.
Yeah. Anyway, so going back to Steve, he had a blog post and a reading, I guess, and it's just called Sally at HR has a problem, and this kind of spun out, I think, out of a LinkedIn post as well. But the gist of it is, it's like, he's telling probably a fictional story, but probably very real to a lot of people about, they have a spreadsheet, they have some that doesn't work anymore, a lot of manual processes, and then they see, ooh, Power Apps in a day. I can build an app in a day and it's going to solve all of my problems by, very easily. And he tells the story of, and I'm not going to, no spoilers here, but Sally goes through app in a day and has some various adventures. And I think there's more parts coming. So it was one of those ones I was giggling the whole time when I was listening to this podcast. So, and it was like giggling, but also like, yes, that's so true. Oh yeah, yeah, I totally see where that's going. So check out that. Uh,
Yeah.
it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. If you had the same thing, it would be Nick ranting, or same kind of
No,
format, right?
no. Well, no, mine would be much different. Nick goes off on dot 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 dot. So
Right, yeah. Okay, so keeping an eye on time, I think we just have to quick shout out to Michael Ross for his new blog post, and that could be a book. That blog post is so long and extensive and perfect. Take all the angles that you need to consider when becoming the best Power Platform admin. So amazing job, Michael. And also April Dunham for the latest video on how to set up the Power Platform Copilot enabled environments. And she goes through it from start to finish and all the little nibs and bobs you need to know about in order to get Copilot to working in an environment near you. So great job, April. Thank you. That is very necessary these days. A lot of people asking about that. And also, just quick check-in with the Boost Quest from last week. We asked the community what learning style you are, visual, auditory, read and write, or kinesthetic. And the results came in 65% say that they're visual learners. And then next to that is read and write. 22% say that that's how they learn the best. And kinesthetics, like me, hands-on, pick things apart, that's 14%. And very few auditorials, 0% actually, meaning, you like to listen to stuff. And that really surprised me. So maybe we should just cancel the podcast since no one's learning the best this way. So
no, we can't do that.
no, just kidding. I would never.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to do this for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
But not as long. I'm not sure if we're going to. Nice segue, I thought, to Marcus. He has a podcast that's been going for 10 years. The CRM Rocks podcast by Marcus. It's Erlandsson. It's amazing. Can you imagine? 10 years.
It will get there.
9.5 years to go. I'm up for it. If
I'm up for it. I'm up for it. Absolutely.
Okay.
And beyond. Cool. But let's it's not about us. It's about Marcus and the CRM Rocks. So yeah, it's true. His podcast is I remember listening to it years ago. Yeah, it's like he really was one of the first podcasts on basically dynamic CRM and, which eventually became the Power Platform, like before CRM Audio and some of these other guys, and before Mark Smith and Neil and all the the podcasters we like listening to. And it looks like here he had a bunch of questions that came from Marcus, right?
Yeah, so Marcus reached out to both of us and a lot of other people in the community that has been on his podcast. So Nick, we've both been on his podcast. You have too, right?
Yeah.
And he asked us to record something as answers to simple questions and send them so that he would include it in his 10-year anniversary episode. Unfortunately, I weren't able to send my answer to him in time. But I thought it would be fun if we answered it now.
Sure.
So a little contribution or a little celebration of their CRM Rocks being 10 years. So, and a part of the thing, Marcus, I'm sorry if you're listening, I'm sorry, I found it really hard to answer these questions because I haven't been working with Dynamics for so long. So I would like to pass this first question over to my OG, Nick. What is the best thing that has happened in Dynamics CRM in the past 10 years?
Best thing that's happened to Dynamics CRM in the best 10 years is the separation of the sales service marketing app separate from a core Dataverse for a vanilla Dataverse. To me, this is really the crux of I know there's a lot of other great things that happened, but the fact that Microsoft recognized that building apps on top of Dynamics CRM is something people have been doing for years and years, and providing a Dataverse environment where you can build apps without having to necessarily worry about the sales service marketing modules, which are great, by the way, but not everybody needs them. So to me, just basically recognizing that, yes, this is the Power Platform. This is the platform to build unique line of business applications. It's not just extending CRM. To me, that's probably one of the best things that have ever happened to Dynamic CRM is the birth of the vanilla Dataverse, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. And a lot of the feedback I listened to his episode as well was, Power Platform, separating the two and actually having that as a service on the side. It's genius, really. And the next question is, what is still your favorite missing Dynamics CRM feature? Now, I think a couple of the people answering this in the episode that Marcus published last week was having different takes on this. So what I think he means is there anything you think is missing in Dynamics CRM today? A couple of guys said the polymorphic relationship. So the database being a relational database. And for instance, if you have a case related to a customer, that could be account or contact. And to have that relationship between two or one or more tables, that to be able to create that kind of relationship yourself, that is my favorite missing CRM feature. Do you have anything else that
No,
comes to mind?
it's sort of related, but I think it's sort of the same thing. It's what Neil Benson called the Elon Musk problem. You have Elon Musk as a contact in your CRM system, but is he connected to Tesla? Is he connected to SpaceX? Is he connected to Twitter? Like, how defining that relationship is still, I would say, awkward at best within Dynamics 365 customer engagement, or the relationship between account and contact table. So to me, that is something, and it's hard. Like, how would you fix that as well? So that to me is just something that, um, you know, I'm sure there's others if I think about it, but that's something I still think needs to be ironed out a little bit better.
Yeah, totally agree. The platform is evolving so fast, and there's so many things that we now can do. I know some talked about just being able to create your own custom tables, that
Oh,
being one of the best things that happened. I mean, can you imagine not being able to create your own tables? For me, because that's when I started with Dynamics, you could. It's not a. It's like, and can you imagine students coming into this platform now with all of these capabilities and all these possibilities, and then what would they miss? That would be a great thing to ask.
yeah. No, I remember Serum 1.2, you could not create your own custom tables. JavaScript only worked on dropdowns. Yeah, we should do an episode on
Amazing.
all the stuff that was missing in version 1 and 1.2. But
Yeah, we need to
let's,
bring some guests on that can actually remember
oh, yeah, yeah.
that far back.
Oh, we'll call that episode Grumpy Old Men. So,
Yeah, and I can take a break. Great, looking forward to it. And that's what we got today, people. This is we're on time. Thank you so much for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast. We would love for you to buy us a beer and shout out to whomever you think this podcast would be valuable to. And yeah, make sure to rate and review and subscribe and follow us on all the social media platforms so you don't miss the next episode. And also, Nordic Summit is coming up this weekend. We're going to do a recap this Saturday. And then next week after that, there's Vegas. So we'll do recaps from the conference days in Vegas. So the next normal Power Platform Boost podcast episode will actually be on October 18th. So that's a month from now. But you'll hear a lot from us in the meantime. So don't you worry. Thank you so much for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your host Ulrika Ackerbeck and Nick Dolman, and we'll see you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news. Bye, everyone.
bye.